Hello everyone, welcome to the fifth video of the video series that we are doing to test and explore the middleware for DevOps management tool. And like always, I would first recommend you to go to the link, which is github.com/shift2 forward slash DOMGMT. I will of course also provide this link in the video description. And here, if you go to the readme.md file, and if you scroll down, and see under the title of more on user profile management, this is where you will find how to create a user, and that is exactly what we are going to do in this video. We are going to create a user, and we will also set up the credentials for the user and also set up some security question and answers for the user, which comes in very handy in case of a password reset event. So to get started, I'll open the tool, which is Postman. I also recommend you using one if you're following along. And once you have this up, the very first thing that we would need to do is get a security token to create a user. Now, if you remember in video number 3, I think we had created the very first user with a workaround. That is not exactly what you would be doing in production environment, but what you would be doing in a real world scenario is something that we would see now. So this user that we had created in video number 3, will use that to get our first security token. So the user ID was USR0, and I'd provided the word random as password for the very first user. Now I'll click on send, and that will give me a security token, which I will copy. And with that token, now I will create a new user. To create a new user, you would need to go to this route, which is API v1 users create, and provide a JSON body. Also make sure you're sending a post request, because this should be a post request. And in the post request body, you provide a JSON object with the mandatory fields required to create a user. So the mandatory fields are a first name, last name, phone number, email, group, init password. Now, init password is initial password or temporary password that we would set for the new member in the team, and the new member or the new user in the team will use this initial password or temporary password to create his or her own personal passwords. The role, uh, I'll keep it as admin for now. Status should always be active and will provide a gender. Also remember that phone and email are unique fields, so no two users can have the same phone number or email ID. Make sure every time you create a user, the phone number and email IDs are unique. With that setup, if I click on send, it will create a user for me. And if you see, we have all the required fields, which is user ID that is auto generated. Now you must see USR2 or USR1 in case you're generating the very first user. I see USR12 because I've created quite a number of users while developing and testing this tool. With that, you'll also see the first name, like how we provided, and the middle name will always be NA if you haven't provided one. Uh, but if you want, you can provide a middle name. So if a user has a middle name, I can just say middle name with some middle name, say Mickey. And if I click on send for this request, the middle name will get set as Mickey. But now because we haven't provided any, by default, it will always be NA, which stands for not available. The last name, as we provided, email, group, internal, role, status, and gender. With that, you also have some extra information, which is setup and security. Now, before we go to security, let's first see what is setup. Like I said, the admin of the system will provide the initial password to the user or a temporary password, in this case, the word random, and then hand over this temporary password to the new user and ask him or her to make his or her first login, the very first login, which will also help the user set up the his or her personal passwords. To set up those personal password, we need to go to this link, and the request type will again be a post request. So the route is API v1 user auth first login, and in the request body we again provide a JSON object with the user ID that just got created. So in my case it is USR12 USR12. In your case it should be USR1 or 2 if you're creating the very first user. And with that, we'll also provide the init password or the initial password that was provided by the admin here. And this will help identify the new user and set up the new password. Now the new password, I've provided the word new password as it is. And also you would notice that there's no field called confirm password. Usually if you register on a web page, portal, or any web form, you would usually see password and then a field called confirm password, something like this, that confirms if the password that you have provided are the same or not, the new password. Uh, For this case, we only accept the field new password in the backend and will leave the confirmation part to the UI. And with that setup, now if I send this request, I will see this result that says USR2, USR12, sorry, which is USR12 setup success. In your case, it must be USR2. So USR2 setup success, which means we have successfully set up the personal password of the user, which is new password in this case. And again, with that some extra information, access token. So we can go and generate an access token with the new password that we just created for the user. And security again, but before again we go to this security field, I'll first try and generate a security token for the new password that we, for the new user that we just created, which is USR12. So here, if I provide the user ID to generate a security token, I should be able to generate a security token for the user. Now, let's first try it with the old password or a wrong password and see if that works. That will not. So USR12 has his or her own password, so we'll provide that. Oops, it should be new password. So this is the password that user 12 uh, provided. So if I were user 12 or if I were the new user and I had provided new password as my new password, I will require the same password here to generate my security token. Now if I click on send, that should work and I should have a security token. Now this token belongs only to USR12, which is user 12. And now I can use this token to set up my security question and answers. Like I said, in case of a password reset event, this is very handy. So if I were user 12 and I forget my password, I can always reset my password using this security question and answers. But first, I will have to set up the security question and answers. And to set up the security question and answers, the very first step is to get the security questions that's generated for me. And to get those security questions, I need to go to this route, which is API v1 user auth security questions. And in the header part, I will need to provide the authorization token. So I would need to provide my own token. And as a user, it's only me who should be able to view the security questions and no one else. So I'll copy this token and paste it here. Now, you must also be thinking, in case of a password reset, if I've forgotten my password, I will not have a security token. Then why should I provide one here? So if you are an admin, uh, you will also be able to get the security questions for the user. Now, if I go back here and generate the security token using USR0 and user zero's password and provide this token, this should also work. The admin should also be able to retrieve the security questions for the user. I've also kept a provision where the user can retrieve his or her security questions. This is for the reason that me as a user, if I want to change my security questions or want to view my security questions, I should be able to do that. So in both the cases, if the authorization token uh, owner is an admin, or if the authorization token owner is the user who's trying to retrieve his or her password, should be able to view the security questions. Now, because USR0 was created as an admin, if I send this request with USR0 token or the user zeros token, I should be able to retrieve the questions. Now it says cannot find security questions. Why is it so? Okay, we need to retrieve the questions for USR12, user 12. Now if I send the request, I should be able to view the questions that was set for the user. And now when I have these security questions, I can set up the answers for them. And like you saw, we retrieve the security questions using user zeros token. That is because user zero is an admin. Else, if I want to retrieve the token using my own credentials, which is user 12, and with my password, new password, I'll generate a token. Now this token belongs to user 12, which is USR12. I should be able to retrieve my own questions. So if I provide this token here, click on send, I should get the same result. So I should be able to view my questions. Now that I have my security questions, I should be able to set up the answers for this. To set up the answer, I will need to go to this route, which is API Vivin user auth security answers. Here, I will need to provide the questions in the request body. So I'll copy the first question and make sure you're sending a patch request. So the previous requests that we saw were post requests. This one should be a patch request. I will paste the first question here. What was your library card number? Any random number. So I'll just keep it as 123. Then I'll see the second question. In which car did you learn to drive? I'll copy this question, paste it here. All right, and I'll provide an answer, say Contessa maybe. Then the third question, which is your favorite holiday destination? I'll copy this and paste the answer here. And my favorite holiday destination, maybe, I don't know, Iceland maybe. And then I will also need to provide the user ID. So because I'm setting up the security questions for myself, which is USR12, I'll provide USR12 here. Also in the header, now remember, I will need to provide my own token. It's only me who should be able to set up my own security answers. So in the header part, um, I'm sorry, yeah, this is the one. In the header part, I should provide my own security token. And with that, if I click on send, this should set up the answers. But before we do that, let us also test if this works in case we provide a security token of another user, which is USR0. Even if USR0 is admin, admin should not be able to set up the answers for any other users. These answers are kind of secret keys to password reset. So if I go back again and in the header, I provide authorization with user zeros token, this should not work. And rightly so, the result says unauthorized request. Security answers can be set by the owner only. So these questions belong to me. I'm the owner of these security questions, and I should be able to set up these answers. So I'll get my security token again for user 12. I'll provide the password here. I'll generate a token. Now this token belongs to me, which is USR12 or user 12. And now if I provide the correct token, click on send, I will see a result, security answers set up successfully. So let us revise whatever we have done so far. This might be a little confusing. Initially, we used the token of user 0, which is USR0, to create another user. So we used the user zeros token to create a new user. And once we created the user with an initial password, we use this initial password to allow the new user to set up his or her personal password. So as an admin, if I create a new user, I will hand over this initial password to the new user, and the new user now should be able to create his or her own personal password, which he or she should never share with anyone. That's just what we did. So we created a new password using the temporary password provided by the admin. And once done, we also set up security question and answers so that we could reset our passwords in case the user forgets his or her password. So to set up these security answers, we would first need to retrieve the security questions that were generated for the user. To retrieve the security questions, we use the route API v1 user auth security questions, and the security questions can be retrieved by admin or the owner of those security questions. So here I can use a token that belongs to an admin or the token that belongs to the users or the user itself. So we used the token, the user's token, the newly created user's token, retrieved the questions, and then using the route API v1 user auth security answers, we set up the answers to the security questions for the new users. Now in the next video, we will see how can we use these security question and answers to reset users password. We'll also see some other ways to reset password for a user, and also how can we update a user's password. Until then, thank you.